So you should be, yeah, we tested audio before, so if you wanna get started.
Yeah, we can at least do the welcomes and intros.
Too, but I never realized it before, but I think.
We're gonna get started in here, guys, and what I do know is that the owl makes it hard if there's any side conversations in here, so adding to our usual meeting protocols of being respectful and being present, especially for those virtually, I'm just gonna say, within the room, please keep side conversation to a minimum. I know it's exciting to be together and I love that we're together. I think there will be opportunity for side conversations, but let's make sure that the folks that are joining virtually can hear okay as we cover the business portions. Yeah, let's just go around. We'll start with in person and we'll just go around and say who's present and then we'll do on screen as well. So Dan.
Okay, I'm David Seeley, I'm representing Richford.
I'm Heidi Bridge Valenta, representing the NRPC.
Lindsay White, chair, MRBA, voting member. I think those are all the things.
Bridget Butler, Friends of Northern Lake Champlain, non-voting member.
Well, but you are voting today.
Oh, I am voting today. Thank you for, yeah, I'm in Kent's place today.
Lauren Weston, voting member, Franklin County NRCD, she, her pronouns.
Dean Pierce staff, and I know that Lorna is going to be joining us with sandwiches and other things momentarily. But now for folks online.
Yeah, I'll just call on folks as I see them. So Sadie. You are muted, Sadie.
Thanks. Hi, I'm Sadie. I'm with Franklin County NRCD, non-voting member, and I use she, her pronouns.
Okay.
Ed Sedell, Orleans County Conservation District, voting member, he, him.
Mel.
Mel, I'm with the Franklin County NRCD. I use she, her pronouns.
Josh.
Josh Serpy, Friends of Northern Lake Champlain, non-voting.
Julie.
Julie Medina for the town of St. Albans, and I'm voting.
I think the last ones are just note takers. Is that everyone that you see, Dean? Sorry, is that everyone online?
Yeah, Dan's note taker, Jake's note taker. I think that is it.
Great. Okay, and Alaire did send a message that she was running about 10 minutes late, so we'll put her on the spot when she gets here. So thanks everybody for the hybrid nature of this. Please, if folks at home are having a hard time hearing, just do speak up. We want to make sure that you're getting active engagement. You're able to be as involved as you can with the hybrid nature. Anyone have any conflicts of interest to disclose today?
Yes.
Thanks, Laura.
As per usual, I'm asking you for one name.
Any other conflicts anyone needs to disclose today? Great, we'll move on to approving the minutes from the June meeting. June. We have a June meeting? That's the one that got.
Did you take a motion on the agenda?
Oh, sorry, I did not take a motion. Skipping over things. Sorry. Yeah, looking at the agenda, I'll seek a motion to approve or any adjustments that need to be noted. Got a motion from Dan. Is there a second?
Second.
Got a second from both Ted and Lauren. All in favor, please indicate by raising your hand physically or virtually. I will call out names. We've got Dan, Heidi, Lindsay, Bridget, Lauren, Ted, Julie. I think that's everyone I see. And we do have Beth that joined us. So Beth, will you just quick introduce yourself?
I didn't hear the motion. I'm Beth Torpy, NVDA.
Great. That was just approving the agenda. And I think we've got a quorum even without you. If you want to abstain because you didn't hear the motion.
I approve.
All right. Okay, now I'm back to, on to approving minutes. Yes, right, we had minutes in the packet.
Yes.
Did we have a June meeting? That's the one that got
Sorry?
complicated? Wasn't the June meeting complicated? I think I wasn't at it, right? Sorry, the summer's all a blur, but anyway. Let's approve the minutes that Jean sent out, whatever date they were.
June 18th.
Yes,
Thank you, okay,
it was the second special meeting after the first.
that's right, okay, I do remember that one, I wasn't that.
For special meeting.
Yeah. All right, so the June 18th meeting minutes, seek a motion or notation of any corrections that are needed.
I'll make that motion.
That's Heidi making a motion. Is there a second? Dan is seconding. All in favor, please indicate with a show of hands. That's Dan, Heidi, Lindsay, Bridget, Lauren. Oh, sorry, Dean. Thank you. Julie. I think that's a hand. Is that a hand from you, Beth? Yeah. Sorry. Small screen and Tay. Awesome. Thanks, everybody. Minutes are passed. And I think the next agenda item is budget adjustment. No, public comment. Sorry, I printed off the wrong document for following along in my analog. Analog doesn't work. Thank you for putting the agenda on screen, Jean. We've got any public comments not related to the items listed here on the screen? Hearing none, we'll move on to seating of alternates or members, and this is an annual meeting. So we do have.
We have a formality.
Right?
Yeah, so this is a standing agenda item. So we do it, we make space for it every meeting. But this is a meeting where, like I said, at the memorial session last week, because it is technically the start of the 2-year term, I just am running through that. I'm identifying that fact and reiterating that when people have their service as a representative or an alternate, it's on this 2-year calendar. We may have continuing discussions, or we are to have continuing discussions about staggering terms, but we're still operating under the default, which is every 2 years and 9 members for everybody. For some newcomers, maybe taking part of the meeting, there are 9 members set in statute and rule, but we can have as many alternates as we would like. We have this regular space, but we try to keep the website up to date, and this is a screenshot. But as people leave the board and someone comes on to replace them for the remainder of the term, or if new alternates come on, they continue to the end, and we try to keep this updated. And that's really all that I was gonna do.
One quick note, Dorothy changed her last name. to
Oh,
Amy.
right.
Just-
Right, thank you very much. Yes, she did. Yes. Thank you for pointing that out. I had to get used to the email changing it. And when she informed me it had changed before, but well, anyway, yes. Okay,
Okay, now, the report on budget adjustments, as Dean had indicated in his message, there weren't any adjustments that needed acting this month, this meeting.
yeah, I think I had done a mistake here with the slides. So-
Okay, sorry. Yeah, election of officers. So this is our annual meeting. This is the time when we elect, as Dean noted in his packet. Summer happened very quickly, and we did not create a nominating committee. We did not follow the formal processes. So we will be taking motions from the floor. So we have I'm currently chair, Kent is currently vice chair, Kent's not present.
And if you don't,
Good
want-
job.
and if you don't want to run the show while the election of the chair takes place,
Yeah, it would be great to have, yes. To make it slightly less awkward.
so would anyone like to nominate themselves or anyone else to be the chair of the Missisquoi Basin Water Quality Council?
I will nominate Lindsay White to be chair.
Thank you very much.
One second, man.
Second that, thank you very much. My procedure at Lamoille was questioned, but I'm going to do the same thing here, and that is see if there are any other nominations.
Great.
Are there any other nominations? I'm not gonna wait for too terribly long. I'm not sure that there would be. I'm not seeing any signs. Okay, with that, it seems like there are no other nominations. So all in favor of electing Lindsay White to have another term as chair, please raise your hand and indicate. So I have been Heidi, Bridget, Lauren, Julie, Beth, and
Oh, we said.
oh,
no.
Ted is off in the corner over there.
Too many people, what a wonderful process.
Okay, well, with that, Lindsay, congratulations, you've been elected
right.
once again.
Thank you.
You get to hold the gavel.
I know, I was like, do you want it?
Yeah.
Sure you want it.
I would have told Dean subtly, but that's okay. Dean, may I ask what the objection was for seeking other nominations on the floor? But you said that.
Well, there was just a momentary question about, well, why not just go straight to the vote on the one?
Okay.
And, my understanding is that I can just make sure that the field is clear.
Just a timing thing, I know that the tactical basic plan support grant pays more for the chairship. And I'm
It's
sure
true.
if, like the
Yeah.
timing of when we do this should shift, because those work plans are due in April.
Right, and I did put being the chair in, but if someone else stepped into the chair and hadn't put the money in, that would be
Right.
complicated, I mean, we did just.
Yeah, like I'm not, I want.
timing
to
works
do
for
it,
when
I
we
want
actually
to
get the
make
money,
it seem like it would just be-
Yeah, that is a complicating factor for people who aren't aware of what we're talking about. There is some funding available through a non-quiz funding source that can cover time for people serving on basin councils, and there's a different amount for when they serve as chair and maybe vice chair, or is it just the chair?
I think it's just chair.
Yeah, and those
Interesting.
work plans are due.
Yeah.
And I don't know that I have a good answer for you right off the top of my head. But it would mean that we're somehow going to say something like, this term is really not for a year, it's for less than a year. And the statute and the rule, or one of the other, says it's for a year. We have to sort it out. But yes, thank you for,
Yeah, that's a
Pointing
good,
out.
yeah, if I were to step down and
Right.
someone had not written that extra time in.
and we have been going.
I also just want to make space for us welcoming Alaire, who's joined us. Sorry about car trouble, glad you're here.
We don't.
So,
We're in the midst of officer election.
Okay.
I just got reelected.
Yeah, congrats.
and the question of timing aside. Now,
Yeah, yeah, I don't think that's something we can solve today, but thank you for pointing that out, and I'm glad it will be noted in the minutes, and hopefully we can discuss it another time.
Or this would apply to every paper. Because it's a meeting that's.
Right.
Yeah.
Well. I don't know that all basins have the same schedule. Are all the basins on the same schedule? I mean, we set this as our annual meeting.
No.
their bylaws would control, and the bylaws that were created when this was set up said it happens at the annual meeting, and it said the annual meeting was the first meeting of the fiscal year,
Okay.
or the first meeting after the start of the fiscal year.
So, yeah, it's.
That's a change, but I don't know about the elections and other than Basin 5 where they just had their elections. Yeah, they just had their elections. So it's similar times.
Yeah.
And
I know, and Lorna, welcome. Thank you for gathering goodies for those of us in person. So we're on to vice chair. I did not check in with Kent. I don't know if you had any conversation.
I didn't, I traded emails with him about his attendance and I didn't say, oh, by the way.
Yeah, similarly, I had a thought and did not.
I nominate Kent Henderson.
In absentia.
Yeah, I mean, can we ask for, I know that Kent has been trying to practice for retirement and.
Yeah, I don't know, he didn't
Somewhat
say
less
anything
involved.
to me about
not wanting to be involved.
not wanting to be vice chair. He could step down
Right,
immediately if he.
then we can do it, yeah, at the
Yeah.
September meeting, so. Unless somebody else would like to nominate, someone that is here, I think we can bulldoze Kent into doing it for at least another 2-month period.
I'll second Heidi's motion.
Okay, we have a, motion by Heidi, a second from Lauren. Any other nominations or discussion points? Seeing none, we'll take a vote. All in favor of electing Kent Henderson in absentia to the vice chair position, re-electing? We have Dan, well, I'm looking backwards on the screen. Dan, Heidi, Alaire, Lindsay, Bridget, Lauren, Ted, Julie, and Beth. Motion passes. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Chair.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you guys.
Okay. Lauren, take it away. Amendment proposal.
Yes. Hi,
Did
everyone.
you have slides that you wanted to share? Or
Sure don't.
You sure don't.
Sure don't. I mean, you all got the memo. So, and Mel, just yell at me when I say something silly. We have a 2-part request for you. For the Black Falls town-owned land in Montgomery floodplain restoration project. Some context is we originally came to this project through the flood resiliency study that we did with Montgomery. This project was identified and prioritized by the community, and we at the time were looking for various funders for final design and implementation. We initially went through the whole process of applying to the FEMA Building Resilient Infrastructure and Communities Fund. And the day it was due, the federal government canceled it. And so then we came to the QUISP to fund final design. And that was thankfully granted. Since then, a federal court has said that the cancellation of the FEMA BRIC program was illegal. And so it reopened, and we have applied now through that fund for the implementation costs as we understand them today. One of the fun things about the FEMA BRIC grant or funding opportunity is that they require 25% local match. And so all of this to say, we looked critically at this project, and we would actually, as kind of step one, like to increase the footprint of the project to get more phosphorus reduction. And so there's a request for about $62,000 to increase the final design budget. And then there's this contingency request that is basically saying we would also like to turn our current agreement into a multi-phase agreement, that if we are to receive the FEMA BRIC funding, there would be the 25% match provided by the QUIS to get the project actually implemented. If we don't get the FEMA BRIC funds, that implementation money is no longer available, and we would have to come back to you all with a completely new ask for any kind of implementation funding, because as it stands, without additional non-reporting money, it's not a key cost-effective project for the WIC to fund exclusively. But if we're able to get the FEMA funds, it becomes cost-effective. So that's the request. Dean did a great job of making my long rambling amendment request make sense in bullet points. We have talked to Stacy Pomeroy and Karen Bates, they approve of this approach. We've talked to Dean about this approach, and we think we think it could get a really good project done and leverage arguably 1.4 million federal dollars if this all works out. So that's.
And the one addition staff would make is that when the funds were approved for the design initially, it was pointed out that cost effectiveness wasn't looking good, looking down the road to implementation. Have to find some other money somewhere, and actually what's happened is exactly what was being mentioned as what was needed, so it's got the quiz support.
Laura's gonna ask the timeline of the brick.
So we should know, we were told in September. Which is why we're kind of coming to you on an off-cycle kind of request.
So at our September 19th meeting, that's not right, September whatever meeting.
The next meeting of this group will maybe be October 1st or
October,
something.
okay.
It's like
Right,
early
right, the
October.
application's due September
Yeah.
19th, yeah, October.
The timing of when I need to say yes, the brick funding, this is the only meeting that was. gonna
But come October, we should know if you're going to use those 25% implementation funds or if they're
Yes.
back in the.
Theoretically, if the federal government sticks to their timelines, yes.
Or different than that, yeah.
I'm gonna add that copy.
Which means you might be learning more about it in December.
Right.
Okay. Well, we wouldn't touch the implementation money, obviously, until we hear about the brick. We would add the 62 in the final design now, so we can finish up all the survey we need to do with our engineer now and get all that work going to increase the reduction.
And this is just curiosity, but how is that survey work going? Where does that stand after half of the summer season?
Yeah, it's going well. Mel, you can correct me here, but I think they have surveyed the additional area too. We have got approved like $5,000 when they would do that additional survey. But now they need to build all the models. And we also need to get
And
cultural
what's the-
resources out there.
What's the extra area? Is it up higher or
Yeah.
is it?
It is,
Sorry.
it's the northwestern border of the town on parcel, where there's a bunch of beaver complex
Yes.
area. It's a little tributary, and there's a bunch of man-made berms. And a lot of this is taking that out and restoring wetlands.
Super.
And the town is very much on, like, they want this addition.
Is it the parcel like where the community garden is?
It's the parcel where the community orchard is, so it's like,
Behind the wastewater, below the wastewater plant. That's where the road is. So Riverwalk Park
Yeah.
and then the VRC easement and then the next, so it's 2 channels over.
Okay.
So it's not, you can't access it from, you access it from, what is that road?
with the covered bridge.
Yep.
Right next to Mark Riad's farm.
Yeah, so you don't access it from
Oh.
118,
Okay.
that parcel. It's
Okay.
Black Falls and the Trout block you
Okay.
from being able to get to it from 118.
Anyway,
I have a couple, oh, sorry,
No, go right
Yeah.
ahead.
a couple questions. This is cool. Can you use the final design money that we've already gotten from the quiz to be the match at all? Is that possible or no? Cause it's a different phase or it's not part of the application.
it's a great question, and we are not able to use fund design because it has started before the FEMA brick program would have started.
Okay. And you can, and same reason that you wouldn't be able to wrap the additional final design request, that money into the brick application and then have the 25% come out of that.
Correct,
So have a,
because the phase has already started.
So you, and you need to show, when you accept the dollars, you need to have that 25% identified.
Yes.
So you didn't need it for the application phase, you need it for the acceptance phase.
So I'm gonna be real honest here. I said that I would get it in order for the application to go in, and then I knew that, I talked to the Vermont Emergency Management folks, and they were like, if you are accepting FEMA brick and you don't have money, you can say no to the request at that point in time. And so.
Yeah.
We've been trying to troubleshoot this for, 3 months and trying, like, we've asked around.
yeah, totally. No, I just was trying to think about like, if if it's possible to like include that that additional final design in the application, and then then the twist would only be like on the hook for 25% of that, as well as the other stuff, because then it would just be a little bit less.
I completely agree, that would be
Yeah,
ideal.
but you can't do that because they can't do that work after you get the application approved. They have to do it now. They can't do it like in September.
Because that fund would go to the final design phase,
It's
not
on
the
the
implementation phase, yeah.
Okay.
And then I will say, we do also have $200,000 of LCBP money already.
Yeah.
That is federal funds, so not. Our estimate for implementation is off a little bit, we do have some
You can use that.
wiggle room there.
Yeah.
That won't need to count as the match, because the amount we asked for from FEMA is already set.
It's already set. Okay.
Yeah.
One additional comment, one of the things, like Lauren said, we had a long discussion about like, how could this work with mechanics, special meetings, additional funding rounds, blah, 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 blah. But one of the things that I concluded was that if this WIC is comfortable with the idea of a multiple phase approval, then that could be the vehicle for revisiting. So then that raises the question, so what about this idea of multiple phase approvals of a project? And generally speaking, that doesn't occur. And one of the reasons why it doesn't occur is because, according to DEC guidance, we're not supposed to bring an application to the WIC to consider unless it has a watershed project ID. That's not the only reason, but it's one of the big things that keeps us to adhering to this DEC process of getting approval for a phase, doing that phase, getting close enough to the end of that phase to get an ID and then seek funds for this ID. Well, it turns out in this particular case, Lauren was able to get the ID for the additional phase. So I'm guessing that we could conceivably see more situations like this one where someone has all of the pieces together that are necessary to get a multiple phase approval, but it's probably not going to become the norm. But all things considered for this particular project, it seemed like it was worth bringing it to you to consider, recognizing that it seems possible under DEC guidance. DEC guidance doesn't say you can't approve a project. In fact, there are some places where they say they can, but you almost never can do it because you have these other things that you have to line up. But then we also knew that the river scientists and the basin planners had gotten involved and were on board. We have a good understanding of the regulatory requirements, and then there is this financial contingency. So basically this deal goes away, or whatever commitment goes away, things not work out. So again, the QUISP was comfortable with this way of delivering this to you.
I just ask like a procedural thing. I think this is a great idea, and I think that's an incredible way to maximize local investment. And I just am curious, like, what do you do to get the ID? How do you get to that level?
Yeah, logistically, there's a online portal, and you need to put in all the information about the project, and then that gets submitted on the back end to our basin plan to Karen. And she typically won't approve any stream floodplain restoration project without also having Stacy Pomeroy's approval in usually a separate email. And so for this, I basically sent them a very similar explanation of what was going on. Stacy's been involved since the beginning of this project, so she felt comfortable with where things were headed. And was able to approve it. It was great.
And just to reiterate, the cost effectiveness gets better with this expansion,
Right.
and with a significant slug of additional outside funding. So
I just ask one more procedural question, because I'm learning. So NRCS, what does NRCS have pockets of money also? And where do they tend to put that? And
Yes, NRCS has a couple different programs, and anyone who wants to correct me at any point in time, please jump in. Their most popular one is EQIP, And that is what most farmers are using for practices, that kind of thing, and of course. And then there's also, CSP, which is like, you're already, if you don't have any issues, you're doing such a good job, you go to CSP. And then there's the emergency watershed program that also exists that can help municipalities fund projects after emergencies. And so I don't know that there would be a practice that would cover this type of project.
Yeah.
And they work on privately owned lands.
So we work with them a lot with farmers, and so like there's some projects that kind of have overlap with phosphorus clean water projects, like stream crossing improvements and things like that, that they can bring money toward. But yeah, I wouldn't think that this type of thing would be something they would be involved with.
That's very helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, but it's like, it is a good resource. Some of the things that we've like had to deal with, I mean, just this different topic kind of, but like, it's just like the engineering and the design is struggle for them, like they just have very little capacity, so sometimes BLT will like find other sources of funding for the design, and then they will pay for implementation of a stream crossing. Yeah, which makes it happen like a lot of faster and more efficiently.
Any other questions for Lauren or discussion about the project?
Yeah, I do. Ted Siddell here. The doubling of archaeology review?
Yeah.
Lauren, is that really what happens when you expand even by like only a quarter of the total acreage?
Yes, great question.
Like Mel.
I can, yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Mel.
So, our original archaeological review estimate was 20,000, and that was just a shot in the dark. Then when we sent the original site, the original floodplain cut area of potential effect to VDHP, they said this is going to take more than just an archaeological resources assessment, and it's going to take a whole stratigraphic analysis based on the location at the confluence of the two rivers. And so what we learned is even that original area was going to cost significantly more than 20,000, the 20,000 we had originally budgeted. So this extra 20,000 will help to buffer those costs and include the new space. Yeah, we did not know anything about stratigraphic analysis, but apparently it's digging trenches and significantly more work for the archaeologists. So the costs are higher, but yeah. So that's my explanation for that.
I have so many qualms about this, but I'm not going to move the needle anyways on the historical preservation group. But I feel like they are really breaking the QUISP programs through the mud on this.
It's a lot of money.
It is. And are you contracting separately out to a different archaeological firm, or is it someone that Scott Dillon has recommended?
We did a whole request for proposals, a competitive procurement process, and UVM CAP, Consulting Archaeology, was technically awarded the contract, but we just haven't executed it yet because we knew that the scope of work was likely to change based on the outcome of whether or not the project was expanded. So that is what we are anticipating will happen soon.
Cool. I'll keep in touch on how that goes. Thanks.
Chris Rottler has joined the meeting, just FYI.
Great, thank you. Any other questions for Lauren or Mel? Anyone care to make a motion about this project, about this amendment? These amendments?
I make that motion.
Okay, can you articulate it? Sorry, Heidi. for the record.
I will approve the request from NRCS for additional funding.
No, NRCD.
Thank you. For the additional funding, do you want me to say the amount? It's around $390,750.
Is there a second?
So I'm just gonna
Second.
clarify.
Yeah.
So it's an additional 62,000 for final design. Plus a contingent amount of 397.50 contingent upon receipt of the FEMA brick funding for implementation.
Great, thank you for that clarification.
Which
So
I sent.
we have a motion from Heidi, a second from Ted. Any further discussion? All in favor, please indicate with a raised hand. We have Dan, Heidi, Alaire, Lindsay, Bridget. On the screen, we have Julie, Beth, Ted. Any abstentions?
This is Lauren, I'm staying.
Motion passes.
Thank you, everyone. We will definitely keep you up to date as this
Fingers
process
crossed.
unfolds.
Bring us that federal money. Do good things with it. Fingers crossed.
This will also trigger a federal audit of the Franklin County.
I think, yeah,
Super looking forward to that.
I know, yeah, I'm anticipating,
Yeah.
so
We
fun.
can cry together.
We're trying to get our books in order for it. All right. Legal, yeah, so I'm turning this over to Dean.
Yeah, this is, and we are getting a little bit closer to the time that I thought we would be reaching, before setting off on the site visit, so I'll be quick. So last September, there was a discussion about how certain projects that require easements involve legal costs that are directly related to a project. So that means it can come out of the so-called 85%, the project money, rather than out of the 15%, which is the admin money. And what I'm gonna just mention today are some of the costs that there was a memo or material in the meeting packet. This had been hinted at or mentioned at a previous meeting that when people apply for implementation funds in the future and the amount of funding that meets the threshold for easements is met, then when the request comes to the BWQ, that there will be an additional amount. It's not changing the budget from the applicant, but it's a figure that's added to the budget in anticipation of the legal costs. The memo that I sent to the Lamoille had blanks because I had not filled them in before I included them. But the memo for this meeting did include them. And the numbers that I'm referring to are the fact that when we look at 3 projects that have involved easements in the Missisquoi Basin, there was one project, municipal, and we could be seeing it, you've seen it last year, publicly owned, one parcel, pretty simple, but then there were also some things that were peculiar because it was the first time that we were doing total legal bills of $2,600. Then there was a project 6-8, there was some fluctuation in the number, and that racked up an amazingly large amount of cost, which was close to 21. And then so far, and I'm not sure where if I have all of my legal invoices, but dealing with the land trust, single parcel cost very, very limited so far, knock on wood. But if you do the arithmetic, the average cost for per parcel basis is around $2,400–2,500, which is just guiding us to say that when people fill out the application, like I said, if you're doing an implementation project, there's gonna be this little pop-up that mentions the legal costs. And to start with, the amount that we would be proposing to add on will be $2,500 per lot. Now, a question has come up in the other basin, what if the parcel or the project spans 2 towns? Well, that's gonna mean more costs, but that's probably not going to happen. But that's the purpose of this agenda item. It's to just reiterate that we've got this form updated so that if someone was proposing an implementation project and had that, then it would include this. Now, what I'm realizing is that, so something that has happened once before was that there was a standalone request made for legal expenses, and we want to try to avoid that when we can.
From an applicant,
Sorry?
from an applicant?
No, so there was, so in that particular case, Cliff, as a staff person for the Regional Planning Commission, submitted an application for legal expenses. So basically, it was attached to, related to the same project. And it was a separate application because we weren't smart enough to think about it when the application first came in, to say, hey, basically.
And there was a rush time.
And it was, yeah, but going forward, it would be the case that it's all done at once. When you're considering the application, you're also considering the need for funding for it. And hopefully that will meet with satisfaction. Okay,
No.
sorry. Yeah, so hopefully that will be a workable process going forward. And if the costs go down, then the amount that's requested will go down. If the costs go up, it'll go up. The thing to also mention is that if we say that there will be a $2,500 approval, we only get to use the amount that is actually incurred. And the rest of it stays in the project funds.
Do you know if are there any legal costs incurred by anyone else in this process? Like, will the landowner have to pay anything out for this review or anything like that?
Well, I mean, with the project that we did, I mean, our attorney spent multiple hours working on this and our staff, so like we definitely have legal costs that we're able to cover through a different thing, but like, I think that's something in the future, because that was the first time I had worked with an easement and worked with our legal team, like, I'm gonna need to include that in our budget. So I don't know if that's what you're asking, but
Basically, yeah, I'm wondering if
Yeah.
I should be including legal costs in my request.
I think we do, because I didn't know this about the 200,000, so now it's like every time
Yeah.
if we have something over 200,000, then for implementation, right? It's not.
It's
hopefully we never get-
implementation, but yeah, I guess, this may be opening up a longer discussion and we would just want to continue it. And Chris Rottler's on, so he can offer his own opinion about this. The purpose of having forums, I believe, because I was part of the discussions or a committee that met when DEC was creating these site access license and easement forms. The purpose of them is it's not supposed to be too heavy for the applicant. You know, there's not a lot that, I mean, we told your attorney several times, you're not supposed to change this.
Yeah.
And in the end, it didn't get changed, but.
And I think that we spent more on this one because it was the first one, and I
Yeah.
think we now have a template that we feel good about to use for this district, but also other watersheds too. So I don't think it's gonna be a huge lift, but it is something that I've never budgeted for before. And I will need to think about it now for like bigger projects, so.
Yeah, and one of the costs that's gonna always fall to the QUISP that wouldn't be on the landowner is that the QUISP as the entity that's gonna now hold this property right when the case of the easements, and it doesn't come up with the license, it comes up as the easements, is this title research.
Yeah.
And sending somebody to the town office, to the land records to do all of that.
Yeah.
And that's really where things get. Yeah,
Yeah.
hours add up. So that's informational.
So that's what you're saying is like, this isn't something that we need to put in our budgets or anything like that, it's just gonna be added here by.
It's gonna be on
By the
top, right?
place.
We're not saying to the applicant, add $2,500.
Yeah.
Because the money, yeah, this gets convoluted, but the attorney who has to incur these costs, or who has to charge the QUISP for these costs, is representing the entity. They're not representing the applicant, they're representing the QUISP.
Yeah.
So it would never be right for them to be paid by the applicant when they're
Yeah.
representing.
That makes sense.
There are a few things. One of the things I neglected to do last week And she's not here to receive but Nora will be finishing her position with the Regional Planning Commission later this month. She started as an Eco-America member before joining the staff. He has been selected to receive a MacArthur Fellowship, I think. I think that's what she's receiving. So she. Fulbright, sorry, yeah, I got them mixed up, a Fulbright. So she will be studying in Germany, in Berlin, for the next little while, and is leaving us. And I apologize to her for not mentioning this at our last meeting, but I said I'd mention it here, also knowing that she's not gonna be here to receive it, but she knows, so we're thankful for her. Something else I wanted to touch on is what could seem like burying the lead, meaning that this is maybe the headline or a headline for this meeting. It has to do with a DEC request for foregoing a certain amount of funding in the Missisquoi Basin. And that could sound like, huh? As most of you know, if not all of you, funding comes to the basin through a series of contracts. They have been numbered year 1, year 2, year 3, year 4. We have all 4 years. They've been $1.5 million, they've been 2 million, they've been maybe a little bit, but they've been in that neighborhood. And the bump up had to do for kind of unusual reasons, but a request has been made from DEC to reallocate around $300,000 or $400,000 from the Missisquoi Basin to the Memphremagog. Why? Memphremagog has been spending their funding. Basically, they've got it committed, or I'm understanding that they do, or close to. And because there's a lot of money in simple terms in the Missisquoi Basin. So DEC came to the clean water service provider in NRPC, asking about a reaction to this idea of, again, foregoing a certain portion of what otherwise would have been part of year 5. So let's say year 5, by some simple arithmetic, would have been 2 million. How about then it being 1.6, or instead of 2.2, 1.8, so that those funds could be reallocated to the Memphremagog. And then also they were asking us to consider using some of that same funding in a similar way in the Lamoille. And this just says, you know, to align available funding with the near-term project demand. Yeah, and they provided data, but this was not something that the CWSP staff knew the answer to immediately. We sought and received additional data on what those projected expenses were, and ending up, and that's what this slide is that basically we're consenting to that requested change. This is not something that was done, like I said, quickly or lightly, but we also felt internally that since this has essentially just happened, and by just, Catherine sent the email to DEC, I think on Monday. This is the first opportunity to mention it to you, and we didn't want this meeting to go by without mentioning it. And I see your hand is raised, and I don't know if before you ask your question, I should see if Chris Rottman wanted to say anything. He turned his camera on, so maybe he does.
I try to lurk in the background and not interfere. So I'm listening, but I keep my camera off for that reason. I don't need to say anything, but I'm happy to field any questions.
I just want to, I'm very glad we're funding good projects. Isn't the whole point of the quiz to be working on this cost rate methodology that is assigning exact amounts of money by the amount of phosphorus needed in different basins?
The
to
formula.
meet the goals.
To meet the goals.
Yeah,
So how does,
taking money from our basin to other basins that are having larger, more, whatever projects done. Won't that harm our overall goals?
So I'll answer preliminarily and then see what Chris has to add. So with a reduction in the amount of the award would come a reduction in the size of the target. So it doesn't mean less money with the same target. It's less money, but not as much money and not as much of an increase in the target if this wasn't happening. So the relationship between the amount of money and the size of the target is staying the same.
So does that mean that the original target for the Missisquoi was off or is flexible, or, I mean, that was,
So the targets,
or have we met our targets differently with less money than we thought, or?
so the targets started out being like way up here. It was like 149 kilograms, I think, a year, like 150 kilograms per year. But maybe it's less memorable that a while ago and people were saying the cost of projects is so much higher than anybody believes that how are we ever going to do that with the amount of money? And so DEC updated its numbers and said, people, you're right, the costs are much higher. So what they did is not give us twice as much money, they essentially halved the targets. So we've gone from having like 149 kilograms to 70 or something for that first step. And what this change would mean for year 5, and what I'm understanding is that it's year 5, what is what we're talking about. It isn't a perennial thing, is that this reduced rate per dollar from recent times would remain the same, but because it's a lower number of dollars, it's not going to bump the target up as much as it would if we were getting the original amount.
But our overall end target by 2030, whatever year it is now.
Oh,
is
yeah, so the
same.
targets that we are obliged to meet add up with every year. So year 1, it started, year 2, year 3, so with year 5, yes, we're adding more to the target, we're getting more money, and none of that obligation goes away. And similarly, in the Memphremagog, because they're getting more money, their target's going up. It's not like, I mean, Chris can confirm that, but they're not getting free money.
And the efficiency, the like price per kilogram is not changing, like that's all obviously being looked at in the different basins as well.
and they do the 30 per kilogram too?
So everybody should be equally concerned about having
Yeah.
cost effectiveness. Yeah, I don't wanna like get out of my depth and try to speak too much about what's going on in the Memphremagog. But what we're, the data we've been presented with is that they have an unanticipated high demand for funds and projects. And I'm assuming that they're meeting that in a cost-effective
Yeah.
way, that they're not, and I understand that they had some projects early on that did really well in terms of cost effectiveness.
Just for clarity, the Memphremagog has their own TMDL, so
Right.
how are we pulling money out of the Lake Champlain TMDL to pay for the Memphremagog? The Memorial to Missisquoi almost makes more sense to me than giving money to the Memphremagog.
Chris, you want to try to answer that question?
Again, I'm all for good projects getting done, I just wanna, this doesn't, every other conversation we've ever had, that doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, I think some big picture details this is a really high level big picture conversation. And happy to share what we're seeing in case that helps. So first, when we're talking about targets, there's the target for your basin, and then there's the target for what you are, like the target that you're assigned, and then there's the overall TMDL target for your basin. And we assign you a target when we assign money, and that's what the cost rate methodology does. It takes the amount of money it's the formula that we have to follow in the formula grant. So if we give you $2 million, that converts your target to 100 kilograms, 150 kilograms, whatever it is.
Sure.
So we are staying I'm being a little repetitive of what Dean said, but just to make sure we're, covering the basics. We are not changing that formula. There is no formula about how we allocate funds every year between the basins. There are some general guidelines that we follow, and that does reflect the allocation of the TMDL, but not entirely. So we make adjustments for O&M, which is different, and we also make adjustments to make sure that certain basins have a minimal amount of funding. So we want to make sure that the Lamoille and the Memphremagog are the two of our, and the Basin 5 are small basins. So to make sure that they can fund an FTE, we've actually gone outside of the TMDL balancing and given them more money because, in the big scheme of things, everything's being underfunded. Like we really need to be giving you $100 million, not $7 million a year to achieve our goals. So that's like the big picture. The Missisquoi needs money, but the Memph needs money. So everything really is, it's a weird thing to say, but everything needs more money than you're getting in terms of the target, in case that's helpful. So shifting money from the Missisquoi to the Memph doesn't really, it's not really about that. You both have long ways to go. The reason that we are doing this is because we are entering a period of time with the legislature where they're going to be looking at the money. And we are very concerned about them pulling money back or lowering the amount of allocations. And they are specifically worried about uncommitted funds, but they're also worried about committed funds that haven't been spent. So maybe you have a project, it's coming in at $1 million or 800,000 or whatever it is, but you might have only drawn down $100,000. Like the legislature will see that. The Missisquoi is the largest basin so far in terms of money that's been given out. So we give about $7 million a year to the system. The Missisquoi is getting $2 million a year. This is rough, like it's 2.3. So you're getting 2/7 of the money, in the amount of funding that you have available to you in the Missisquoi is around 10 million 3 or 4 years. That is by far exceeding all the other basins. So we are proposing taking 400,000 out of your 2.3 million, or 300 to 400,000 out of your 2.3 million and shifting it to the Memph. You would still be getting we've also talked about doing this for the Lamoille, which I don't know if Dean, I don't think you mentioned that, but okay. Yeah, and so you would still be getting 1.5 million. In terms of liquidity and cash flow, based on the amount of projects that you have, we actually don't anticipate that you would be spending this in the next year. You tell me, you are the experts, but I think that what we're hearing from Dean and what we're seeing for projects is you have anywhere from 3 to 5 million in need, which means you have let's just say you have 5 million available to you without any new appropriations. That's a very large sum that adding $2 million to would make it $7 million, and the legislature will be looking at that. So moving the money to the Memph, and it's a small amount, 3 to 400,000, and we know they can spend it in the next year, is our intent to sort of move the money a little bit faster. It's worth saying from our point of view, we do consider this. I'm going to admittedly talk out of both sides of my mouth on this. I'm going to say we consider this a one-off, meaning I don't really want to repeat this because I think there's a lot of value in creating some expectation for what the funding is going to be. But the money isn't consistent from the legislature, and we're really worried about the dynamic. So we're trying to anticipate that and be proactive as opposed to just responding and having the money taken away from us. So that being said, here's the other side of my mouth. I think we need to be having a conversation about these allocations as a system. And this is the first time we're having this conversation. Ted, you're on the call. We haven't even talked about this with the MEMF yet. So this is kind of new for the MEMF. We've talked about this with Dean, but there's still some hoops to get to before we even bring this up with the MEMF. So you're very early on in this process for what it's worth. I'll stop talking in case people want to jump in.
Yeah, Ben Cobans gave me a heads up. This might be coming down the pike.
Okay.
I would just like to reiterate Chris's comment about like having a big picture conversation across all the basins around this kind of allocation and also their cost effectiveness thresholds. And making sure we're all working from the same cost effectiveness threshold so that, you know, a really good, like I could spend more money if it didn't need to be as cost effective and I could get projects. And so I just want to make sure we're comparing apples to apples.
We are. The cost rate methodology applies to the Lake Champlain TMDL as equally. It's the same methodology for the MEMF. And so it being a different TMDL doesn't affect that. It's the same formula. In case this is helpful for you, Lauren, and everyone else in the room, I don't think the amount of money you have on hand is a reflection of your effort at all. What I think is a challenge in your basin, and I think we need more data on this, and I propose putting out additional requests for like surveys or information, but intuitively, it's about capacity. Like you could use more staff to get more money out the door. It's more support for landowner outreach and engagement, which like that part of that staff, part of it's support from DEC. And part of it is the challenges around the slow release of tools, like the Forest Roads, Forest Trails tool is only coming online now. Like you've been 4 years in, you haven't been able to do those projects. So there's a number of factors outside your control. And I am advocating for even more capacity funding to keep pace with the clean water funding that's out there.
Great, thank you for saying that, Chris. That was something I wanted to make sure got stated, so I appreciate hearing it from you that
Yep.
in my organization, capacity is our killer. If we had another FTE, I would get a lot more projects done. Getting 1/8 of an FTE, not super helpful.
I get it. I'm with you. I think in the oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I'll say the same for FNLC, that things have shifted and changed for us with just having a full-time project manager, and we're at the point where we finally understand what our capacity is for that one FTE, and that we can't stretch into more work without thinking about what would another FTE look like in that role.
Yeah, I get it. Here's some really quick math. The MEMF gets $700,000 a year, and they have funding from Great Lakes Fisheries for capacity. And I would say you have 3 FTEs in the MEMF, if not more, because there's a few others like Gabby and whatever with the MEMF water. So let's say 3 to 4 FTEs in that basin to move $700,000 in project funds a year. If you scale that to the Missisquoi, you have 3 times the amount of money. You could use 9 to 12 FTEs just doing clean water projects to move, and you do not have 9 to 12 FTEs in your basin to move this amount of money. So, I mean, that's rough math, and maybe it's more like 7 to 10 FTEs, but you still don't have that amount of people working on it. And so I don't want you to be feeling down by this news and demoralized. Like, you're doing amazing work. I'm really appreciative of it. And you have moved a lot of money. There's a lot of projects that are going through, and you're navigating the bureaucracy, which is like not easy work. And I am with you on trying to advocate for what's needed. So more to come on that. It's, we're the Titanic, which is not the best metaphor. But we move slow, like it's hard to turn the boat. So it's, I can deliver the message, but it's hard to always get it disseminated. So to the extent that you're having conversations with colleagues in DEC or elsewhere, feel free to sound the alarm about capacity and other challenges. It won't be, it won't be unproductive to do that, but we'll try and be a little bit more organized about that message as well.
Thanks, Chris.
Okay.
Did you have a,
I'll
okay,
I mean, I can say, I don't know, for whatever it's worth, like VLT, we're a statewide organization, we work across all these basins, we have like, and sometimes it's just based on like where we happen to own a piece of property that has a dam on it. We have two pretty big projects going on in the Magog right now. I don't know if that's like part of what your calculations are showing, they're in design and we're gonna be looking to implement. So there's just kind of, there's also that perspective. So, and I'm happy to talk with anyone about like the difference of different basins. Like we do see quite a big difference in like working with the QUISP in each place and the forms and like the invoice, like all the schedules, and then also just like working with consultants across the basins, there's a real difference in cost. So that's just something interesting that we're seeing with the like cross basin, trying to like work across all of this with the same program, but it's like really like 5 different mini programs sometimes.
there were a couple of other updates, sadly, if that's okay.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, so, I wanted to touch on something else. There was an email sent to all of you when you were copied on the letter that went to the secretary that concerns the beginning of the reappointment process. So, I just was going to say a few words about that, which is, it's controlled by Act 76 and the rule. You got the copy of the letter, so you know things are kicking off. We have to show adequate annual progress. So when you're not meeting your targets, and we can't say that we are, you can be reappointed when DEC is satisfied that you're making adequate progress. So that's going to be the measure ultimately in this particular case, because between now and December, we're not going to magically achieve 4 years of targets. So what does DEC look at? They look at the cumulative progress towards the target. They are also looking at the pipeline of projects, future projects, and they're looking at our fiscal management. So we're getting ready to do a data dump, basically, concerning 2 projects. We haven't identified those projects. We have to do this, by the way, in each of the basins. So everything I'm saying about the Missisquoi, we're also doing in Memorial. So we will have to select 2 projects that have been done in the Missisquoi and give DEC all of our data, all of our communications and so on, having to do with it. And then they are going to be assessing that we're complying with the open meeting law, things like that. And they want to just know that we're using public funds effectively. So in terms of what's happening next, the letter went out. And one of the key reasons for bringing this to your attention today is that there's going to be a public opinion survey. Chris has requested it, and Nora is in the process of putting together email lists so that people can be contacted individually and get the link for the online survey that's going to run between the middle of September and the middle of October or something like that. The Clean Water Service Provider also has to do a kind of exhaustive self-assessment that's due towards the end of October, I believe. DEC will be reviewing all of that stuff, including the opinion survey, through the end of December, and they're hoping to have their decision by January of 2027. So anyway, this is, you can always download the slides from the website. I've kind of rushed this. People have any questions about the reappointment process, please let me know.
Questions, but maybe not directly related to that.
Sorry?
I have like adjacent questions. First question is, I wonder, just kind of circling back to conversation we have with Chris and the whole public participation policy, the public outreach work we're doing when this work started. Could we
So-
get an update on that next meeting?
So, the requirement that is part of the setup of the base of the clean water service providers was a public participation policy. It was the policy. And I know that we had adopted an initial policy. I believe in the Missisquoi, there was a committee. I'm trying to remember because this goes back a ways. And then there was discussions about revisiting the policy. There were discussions about could QUISP money be directed to help partners essentially do public participation. And that has not, there hasn't been really much of anything happening with that, I'll say in a year's time. The fact of the matter is that on an occasional basis, some partner organizations have managed to use project development as a way of doing essentially public involvement, but it isn't like the marquee way of using project development funds. But like the issue of staging the renewal of memberships, this body at its next, my next slide was topics for discussion at the next meeting. And it could very well be this revisiting of the public participation. I just don't want to, in the policy, and the thing I just don't want to give people false hope about is that there's some magical additional source of dollars. Chris had been involved with an AmeriCorps member at DEC who was doing a lot of communications work. Nora had been involved with communications work. That really slowed down, I think, since last year with the end of the AmeriCorps program. So there was some kind of bootstrapping of public participation through that. But the bottom line is that we should probably have another conversation about it and how we will approach it in this basin. I just don't want to give people the impression that I know that there's money for it.
Yeah, no, I think I'd just like to revisit the conversation. And then relatedly, I'm wondering if we can also revisit the expedited project development money. You and I have been having conversations, like we went through $10,000 of project development money, like it was nothing. You have to wait until the next like 366 days to get more of that, and that's slowing us down a little bit. And so maybe just talking about if we as a group want to increase that amount for the next round. I think that's
so quickly on that point, I mean, it's something that there has been some thought given to. Just to give it context, DEC at one time was really encouraging getting project development funds out. We were in agreement with that. We thought create a policy that essentially allows people to come get the money easily, and we did that. We thought $10,000 seemed like a decent amount per year in the Missisquoi. Maybe it should be double that. It's all been scheduled though, so that it ends by June of 2027. Why? Because June of 2027 is the end of our first term. And so this thing I was saying about reappointment, we didn't want to make any commitment for a possibly different clean water service provider in the event that we didn't pursue it or didn't get renewed. So as we get closer to that, I guess as soon as January comes and if the QUISP is reapproved, then it would be the perfect time to talk about the next version of expedited funding, which could look at, 2 years out, 3 years out, and could look at a different number, 10, 20, rather than 10,000, it could be whatever.
Does that mean all of our task awards review end on June 2027?
No, it doesn't, I don't know that there are any task awards that are beyond December of 2027, but the critical date, the technical end of the assignment is June 30 of 27. So the fact that it expires has not kept us from having contracts go to December. So that's just a fact. We didn't pin some people in to say, no, we're only doing contracts through June 30, because that seemed unreasonable. And we're hopeful that we will get reappointed. So it's probably just gonna be a minor technical thing, and that in the future, the next round of applications, 20, or maybe even some of your own applications, now that I think about it, have had 2028.
Yeah.
But, or that the next one would,
Yeah.
and we're not gonna be prevented from using 2028 just because of this reappointment process.
So then I guess to that end, could we have the project development conversation sooner if we're saying that that's not a
Well, that's like
deadline
a
anyway?
policy thing, though, I think is what Dean's saying, is that the NRPC would be making
Yeah.
a policy that would then not necessarily carry over into, if there were a new quiz, whereas dollars out is different. Like,
Yeah.
we've signed this contract and these dollars are going to be spent. It's different than like, for all time.
I wouldn't object to having a conversation begin before January. I have no qualms with that. It's just that we have the current one through June 30th, 2027. And I think that we would probably prefer whatever conversations happen, even if it was December or January or February, would say that, okay, the next version of it, starting in July of 2027, rather than having them overlap. Because the technical detail was that in order to give this project development funding out, we have to sweep up all of the work into a single submittal and deliver that like a block grant. And so more moving parts.
And then just one other thing that, like, this doesn't fall in project development, I don't know where this falls, but, sometimes there's a lot of hours incurred between a quick meeting and a contract. And I'm wondering if there can be some sort of, like, where can I bill that money to? Like, for example, I had to go out to Wendy Scott's tree planting with Nora, and I couldn't build that anywhere because they had to go do a verification visit before we could even sign a form. So I'm just like, there needs
So
to be
specific to
kind
adoption is what you're saying.
I don't know that it's specific to adoption, I think.
Okay, so what I'm gonna say next may address your concern, maybe not. So when, early days, we were of the view that, oh, maybe the effective date of an agreement could be when the BWQC had taken action. We were informed that can't be. I do know that one of my peers has started the ball rolling again, and I don't know if Chris is in a position to address it. But the idea of, hey, can't we use the QUISP process like some other processes, VTrans does it, where the effective date would be the date of the BWQC action.
Yeah.
And that could solve your problem, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't know, Chris, if you're understanding of the Dan's recent email, right?
Right.
Yeah, and right now it's I don't know if we allow pre-award costs. That's a clean water funding policy question. I think it might be, but I don't.
It is prohibited by the clean water policy.
Okay. So it's actually not a QUIS policy, that's a QUIP policy. And in terms of, the payment between you and us, Dean, that's sort of what Dan's email was focused on. But that is the date of agreement execution because that's when the legal right to get paid attaches. But yeah, I don't know if how easy it would be to change that, unfortunately, the pre-award costs.
So people are agitating, like, can something be done? We don't have progress. The funding policy changes very slowly. But collective action maybe could influence that, but the funding policy changes slowly.
And then I think, at a future meeting, could we also talk about this whole fiscal year contractor invoice, fun time that you and I had? And just make sure everyone knows what the rules are, because I apparently didn't know what the rule was.
Okay. Yeah, I was having more conversations with Amy about that
Okay.
as well. So yeah, we can do a deep dive in the whys of having to get those things in with the work that's done before the end of the fiscal year and as soon as possible. And it has to do with those of us who live in the world of audited and all that stuff.
Yeah, I think just having a conversation, because again, I think I have like 30 task awards and I didn't realize this was something we needed to be doing. That's on me.
Oh.
I thought we were gonna be here for like.
Right.
Well, Beck, if there was ever a reason to expedite things, let me just see. Yeah, so we could be talking about progress towards key targets. We could be doing an update on the year 5 contract and some of this earlier stuff. We could be talking about funding for public outreach. We could be talking about changing creating the next iteration of the expedited funding. You could be talking more about what it takes to adjust the, I say DEC policies, but as Chris is pointing out, CWIP, not planning program and other things that people send things, notes to me. And maybe since it is 12:23 and we thought naively that we might be wrapping up at 11:45. So there are at least 6 people, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So if everyone goes to the site visit, that's still a quorum, and so we would be recessing. Is everyone going to the first site visit? And there's no penalty.
Which one is that?
Well, actually, as long as we have 5, as long as 5 of you are going, then we would be recessing to the first one, which is Longley Bridge.
Yeah.
So, okay, so does someone want to make a motion to recess this meeting?
I'll move to recess the meeting. The Longley Bridge.
Everybody knows where that is.
No. I'm gonna. Carpool.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll talk about that as soon as we.
Do we have a motion? Is there a second?
A second.
Okay, we have a motion from Alaire, a second from Bridget. All in favor of recessing? Raise your hand. We've got Dan, Heidi, Alaire, Lindsay, Bridget, Lauren. I don't know who's on screen, but but that's 6. So recess.
All I'll say is I have to be back in my office by 2, so
Okay.
I might not bring you guys to the tree planting maybe.
Yeah, so I was going to say, this is another thing, since we're running late, is there's no penalty for doing 1
Right.
or doing
Yeah, we can
2.
chat.
So could.
I
go
think
to-
let's maybe let the folks off on screen go and then we can have an interim
Oh, yeah,
discussion.
sorry, thank you all.
So, yeah, so I just want to say thanks to everybody for joining us virtually. We appreciate your presence and hopefully we'll see y'all in person sometime soon.